All right, welcome back to MGD 111. We're going to continue working with layers here. We already have a multi-layer picture here where we've added some elements. Now what we want to do is add these two girls from this picture. Now, there's a lot of dust and a lot of soft edge stuff going on here and blur from motion and everything. It's really hard to get a nice, precise outline of something like this. So I'm going to show you a different way to merge this. I'm just going to do a really rough cut outlining these two girls on their sleds. Take just a moment here. You can see that we've included everything that we needed to, and a lot that we didn't. But let's hit copy, and we're going to go to our other sled picture. We're going to hit paste, and my goodness, that just looks terrible, doesn't it? They're facing the wrong direction. They're too big. Everything's just wrong with this. That's okay. I'm going to show you how to try to blend this in a little bit more. So first of all, let's zoom out just a bit. And one thing that we need to be aware of is that we just added another layer here. Now so far, we have our background. We have another layer that's text, and that's pretty easy to identify. And we have two more layers here. And so far, it's pretty easy to tell which one is which. As you continue to add layers to a picture, though, it becomes occasionally more and more difficult to figure out which layer is which. The cool thing is, we can actually rename a layer by just double-clicking on the name. I'm going to call this one Snowman. And I'm going to call this one Extra Sledders. And that way, I can tell which layer is which, as long as I remember how we're doing this. Now, let's go to our Extra Sledders layer. We need to make sure that we're clicking on the right one. And again, just renaming the layers takes a few seconds. It's easy to do. It makes it a lot easier to identify these layers if we give them good names. If we're only working with a couple of extra layers, sometimes it's not that difficult. But I've worked on images where I had upwards of 20 or 30 layers at a time, some of which looked very similar and just this little thumbnail size. So when in doubt, just double-click on that name and rename it. So what do we have here? We have these two girls. Well, let's go to our transform tools. We looked at the basic ones. Edit. Let's go to free transform. We're going to scale it a bit. Let's go to transform. We should probably flip it horizontally. Yeah. Let's put it in the right direction here. Let's rotate it some more. That's cool. And let's scale it. And remember, we're going to hold the shift key down while we're scaling it, so that we end up with the proportions staying the same. And let's move them over this way. That looks kind of cool. Now they still don't blend in very well. I'm going to scale it up just a bit. I'm going to hit OK for the transformation here. Now the reason they don't blend in well, of course, is if we zoom in, they have all this extra background around them. Now the cool thing is, when we have a background, sort of like snow here, we can use tools just like we did with the erase function here on the snowman, and we can just kind of go in and remove the parts we don't like. So I'm going to just kind of go in, and as I erase these elements, I get this nice soft edge here, and I can sort of blend things together. I'm actually going to give this now a soft edge. We had a hard-edged brush here. As I give it a soft edge, in fact, I'm going to make it a bigger brush too. As I start to blend this together, you'll see that everything is kind of mixing in together a lot better than it was before. That's kind of a cool thing that we can do only if we're working with layers. If I had pasted this onto the same image and flattened it, I wouldn't be able to go in and just erase the parts I don't want and have the background show up like it was before. As you can see, if I continue to do this, we get an image that starts to look a little bit more realistic. We can also make some adjustments to this particular layer. Let's go to Image, Adjustments, Brightness. Let's brighten it just a bit. Try to get some of that blue cast out of there. No, that didn't really work. Let's reduce the contrast a bit. Hey, there we go. It's starting to blend in a little more. You have to work back and forth with these things sometimes to try to get them to work. Let's go back to our eraser, erase a little bit more. And it just kind of goes back and forth here. Take your time with this and try to make it look as natural as you can. And sometimes you want to zoom way in to get really precise with something. Sometimes it's good to really zoom out, though, and see if it looks realistic or if it looks kind of fakey. I think at this point I need to move down to a smaller brush here so I can get just a little bit more precise. I have a little bit too much of an aura surrounding them with the snow here. There we go, now it's blending in a little bit better. And the cool thing about snow, well, snow is cool anyway, it's like 32 degrees or below. But the cool thing about this is snow is pretty easy to blend in together because it has a certain tone that we recognize, and there's a lot of random detail to it that we don't have to really worry about so much. If we're trying to blend this into, say, a sidewalk or something, we have to worry about lining things up and getting certain elements to match perspective and everything. With snow, we can sort of just mix it all together. So let's zoom out again, and we're getting pretty close there. They're kind of on a crash course, and they're kind of in a silly direction, but you get the idea of where we're headed with this. So let's save this and pause here, and we'll continue learning about layers.